Hey, welcome back. I'm so excited to continue what we were looking at last time in part 1 of quantum physics, the word and manifestation. So let's dive right in.
I think I'm actually holding this jar, but I'm not holding it. This is a result of magnetic field repulsion. Now, if I were to phase shift the atomic frequency of the vibration of the atoms in my hand, I can pass them right through this jar and the liquid in the jar, but no problem. My hand wouldn't even be wet. I'd pass it right through if I can match that subatomic frequency.
Real quick, remember Nikola Tesla had technology that he matched the frequency of sound to a giant tower, kind of think on the scale of like the Eiffel Tower, and he was able to knock it over with sound technology. And that's the technology that they've been keeping from humanity for whoever knows how long.
Right. So we know that what is here is really truly illusory, but the benefit to knowing this is understanding that there's a superposition. Everything exists only as probabilities until it's collapsed into a reality. That's what's important about what I'm saying.
Until it's focused on and then brought into expectation, and we'll keep listening.
Your reality is not fixed. Your destiny is not hard-coded and set. It can be changed. It can be altered. We're living in a projected hologram. We are living in a creation. There's no doubt. The Bible, the Quran, the Sumerian tablets, the Enuma Elish, the Mahabharata. We're living in a created universe. There's no way to dispute that. It's created. We know the mathematics now. The mathematics have been discovered in supersymmetry by Professor James Gates at University of Maryland, former presidential scientific advisor. They discovered, him and his team of physicists discovered that we are living in a program matrix, and the code that operates this matrix to form and actually operate is the same as that code that runs search engine browsers and websites on your computer and your phones. We live in that code. That's the code we're living in. No wonder why we made it. As above, so below. We duplicated what's already inside of our processing. We just replicated it, made it a website, made an internet, made a website, made phones that run on the same coding and programming. It's a special kind of coding called error correcting codes. We're living in that exact same system from this quote unquote biological standpoint, but everything, including our bodies, exists as waves of light. Matter of fact, when you're not looking at something, it's not even there. If you're not home and you're not looking at your house, the house is a wave of probabilities. Now that wave has a specific frequency. So when you look at it or when somebody else looks at it, those waves collapse into that same frequency. That frequency is locked into a particular shape of a structure. So we can all identify the same type of structure when it's looked at. We have to learn how to hack the nature of our reality. We have to understand a couple things. We have to tell people about the double slit experiment.
This is huge.
We have to understand that this experiment was done just as a random thing. Let's see what microscopic particles look like on the back wall of a box if we shot them through a slit, just so we can analyze what happens when they have the impact against the wall. Something crazy happens. First of all, they started shooting individual particles from a microscopic little gun through the slit. When they were shooting it through the slit, they were like, okay, one slit, it created a digital pattern. They added a second slit. When they added a second slit, it wasn't digital anymore. When they added a second slit and they were shooting one particle at a time, it created a wave pattern on the back wall. Now, what's interesting is a wave pattern means that the particle was shot from the little gun and turned into a wave of light, a wave of potentials, and then interacted with itself and created a wave pattern on the back wall. So
it interacted with itself and created a wave pattern on the back of the wall.
So scientists said, man, this is crazy. How can this be? We're shooting solid bits of matter and it's creating a wave pattern. This shouldn't be. So they took a little tiny microscopic camera to put in a looking device to see what was happening. When they put the looking device in there to check out what was happening, this is where it gets interesting. The little electrons that they were shooting through the slits decided, oh, we're being looked at. Now we're going to collapse and maintain our particle status. We'll stay solid now. The act of looking at what was happening told the particle, said, okay, well, you guys are looking at me now. I'm going to go ahead and be solid. I'll make a digital mark on the back wall. When you take the camera away, it becomes a wave. When you look at it, it becomes a particle. When you take the camera away, it becomes a wave. What does this mean? It means two things. The first thing it means is that particles, whether it's an atom, whether it's an electron, whether it's a photon, They're all conscious. Think about that for a minute. Every atom has an electron orbiting it. That means every atom is conscious because electrons are conscious, because electrons can make a decision. They can make a decision based off of what's looking at them. That's huge. The second thing is everything exists first as a wave of potentials before a reality is collapsed into existence. So the importance of this is that your life is not hardcore set. There are alternatives that you can take in your life. You don't have to, just because of where you started doesn't mean you're going to end up there.
Whoa. Right? Okay. I didn't want to interrupt him while I was explaining all of that because it's high level science that is mind blowing. And honestly, I still have a hard time wrapping my mind around it. But imagine this one little particle, and when it's shooting through and it thinks that it's not being seen anymore, it goes into a wave and starts kind of like doing its own thing almost. And then when it sees that it's being viewed and seen, it then acts how it knows its nature is supposed to act, which is in a single particle. So that being said, and what activates it, what activates it to do that is its acknowledgement that it's being viewed by the viewer. So it just means that what we focus on, have you ever heard that phrase, what you focus on expands? And it just goes to show the power of our focus, and that really programming our mind through repetition, and not just mindless repetition, but like revelatory, inspired, full of faith repetition. And faith means like you got the gumption behind it. It's the difference between when you use your debit card and you just got paid versus when you use your debit card and you have not looked at your bank account in a long time and you don't know where it's at, and it's kind of like, oh, like I think it's gonna work. It's the type of confidence when you just know that it is what it's supposed to be. Okay, going back to part one, which if you've not seen part one, please go back and watch part one because we covered some really good foundational stuff there. But the whole concept of what we are thinking on, the reason that it gives that list, like focus on what is good report, what is pure, what is noble, what is righteous, because it's like the electrons are out there just awaiting the focus from us. And it also brings into the conversation the concept of free will. This stuff for me just like illuminated so much in a positive way for me, things that I didn't have answers for. For example, like, so what is it, free will? Like, do we have free will or not? Are we coming here and do we know what we're going to choose? Like, if we knew the rules, why wouldn't we choose better? And how come we can't, like, how come God isn't stepping in and just saving everybody if we're against this big evil plan, And if he said it's finished, then why are we all still struggling so much? And like, is it finished or not? And like, who's actually in control here, And also, what's the whole point? I think the point is a lot different. It's not the Disney movie where it's just the victory and then it's everything perfect. It's always about becoming and enduring and up leveling and like the next thing. But the thing is, we can take the drama out of it and just know that like I'm becoming in this moment. The victory is secure. It's more just about me versus me versus my programming, me versus what I came here with in terms of what I acquired and inherited from like the brokenness and the wounding of my family and my lineage. And once I'm able to look at all of that and then to know that through the finished work, I'm empowered to rise above it and that I can do things and point my mind and expect strongly change, and that the arguments about legalism and stuff are really probably not even the right conversations to be having, because it's already finished and he did it for all of us before we were saved, like before, so like no matter what angle of wrong you were, it doesn't matter. Like that's not the point. The point is that no matter where you come from and no matter how you were flawed or how your parents taught you wrong or how you got it wrong, whatever it is, it doesn't really matter. All that matters is now that we have the power within us through the finished work to point our minds on the exceedingly abundantly far above anything we could ask, think, or imagine. And in order to do that, we actually have to assign meaning to that. So what is the exceedingly abundantly to you? What is far above anything you can imagine? when I was at the lowest point in my life, honestly, now it's a practice of mine. I just would comfort myself to sleep by thinking about exceedingly abundantly far above anything we could ask, think, or imagine. Think about what would that be, you know, because I'm like, I'm a dreamer. I can think really big. I can think of amazing things. And I would just do that as a coping mechanism, not even realizing that it was actually writing the program. And that's where when we look to and are focused on the electrons of expectation, and especially when we pair that with writing things down, throw back to my other video, write the vision, make it plain, for that, so that those who read it may run it well. Talking about angels. Well, anyway, now I kind of perceive angels to be, I think of them like the electrons, you know? And yeah, of course, we have people that have seen visions of big men, angels, and that's cool. But the point is, we all break down to a single particle anyway. So if we want to split hairs, we can find anywhere to split hairs. But I imagine the electrons being like little missions, like just waiting, like little mission men, you know. All of creation is awaiting the revelation of the sons and the daughters to realize that the electrons are here to bring the fullness of the kingdom. What is that? It's more than enough. It's shalom, nothing missing, nothing broken. It's perfect health and healing. And it's your dream life. Like, it's your dreams. And when people start to get weird about that, listen, he is not scared. I can imagine being Yeshua and having gone to the cross and then coming around again and having a bunch of us be like, well, we didn't want to ask too much because we just were told that like money's bad. And I just didn't want to like, I read in the book of, what was it Malachi, where he's like, you and your summer homes and your winter homes. And it's like, well, I don't want to have two homes then, because like he looks down on that. It's like, no, you have to see the heart behind it all, you know, and like really the things that matter is like, are you driven by greed and lust and never enough? And like, it's like you're just, your whole condition is polluted and wounded and disgusting and selfish. Like, those are the things, those are the heart issues that matter. So it's like, I'm not going to hold back in my dreams and my expectations when I realize that we serve an infinite God that created out of the very breath of nothingness and just sound created everything. If he can create the sun and the moon and the stars and the earth and the oxygen and the electrons and the trees and the plants and everything from just a breath of sound, you better believe I'm going to sit here and try and dream bigger than what I can think of right now. Why are we holding back for this weird false reality, like fear of being too much? Like, well done. There was so much more for you though. There's power in saying, I am now so glad. I am now so grateful. I am now so excited that da 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 da. For whatever reason, writing it in this present tense. And this is another qualm that I have with religion, is how often do we hear God's about to, God's about to, God's about to. And so like, I've been sitting around waiting for God's about to, because that's where I was aligning my faith instead of aligning it with it's already finished. So when you script, when you write down, there's something powerful about writing the vision and making it plain and being specific with your pen in hand, or even typing it, whatever, however you got to do it. But there's something powerful about it when you write it in present tense. I am now so grateful that. My world started changing all around me very quickly. And don't get me wrong, there's always going to be this space of resistance and time. It's just how it goes. And this time comes and it's kind of like running into the resistance where you're like, is it really going to happen? Oh my gosh, I just had my mind on all of this good stuff. And the total opposite seems to be cropping up. And the key is to keep your faith. When the word says, without faith, you cannot please God. I don't think he's sitting there just trying to be like, please me, make me feel happy. What it's saying is like, the faith is the currency that that sets the foundation and allows, it's like setting the roadway, the transportation system for what you're believing for to come through. And when you remove your faith, you pull back that road, it's like you're now on a different, it's not going to come through. It can't come through. You've removed the systems that allow it to come in. And don't panic about that part. It's like a micro macro thing. So if in the macro, you're generally thinking high, you're generally remembering to believe these exciting, you're being a dreamer and you're being expectant. And for the most of the time, that's your general signal that you're sending out, it's going to maintain, it's kind of like a radio frequency, you know? So it's like, it might have some blips if you're having bad days and you're getting stressed out. But generally speaking, you just want to make sure that the majority of the time you're residing in that fullness of faith. And because as we'll learn more, it's really about tuning into a certain signal. And then also what we just learned about the electrons is like when you're thinking about something and expecting it, it's like looking at them and being like, hey, remember, I've assigned you to do the following according to the finished work, and all of creation is already programmed for the King of Glory, and the King of Glory has said we were here to have dominion. So like we can just let go of all of the like who's good, who's bad, what's going on, whose fault is it, all that crap. It's more just about get your heart right so that you know even what matters, because like you could also use this stuff to just get a bunch of Ferraris, you know, I have 40 Ferraris, and there's nothing wrong with having Ferraris. But it's like if that's the fullness of your dreaming and you don't have anything deeply rooted in yourself to be able to live beyond that shallow cares of this world, then you're just going to be missing the whole point of the beauty of this. So I'm going to cut that off here, and then we're going to pick up again more next time. Be blessed, be well, be free.